Shoot.
Were you trying to catch me saying something incriminating?
Yeah, Lyndon was just like talking about someone he disliked, and I was trying to catch him in the act. This is Mission Stories. Welcome. This segment is our doctrinal discussion for the week. It's our third episode, so we're trying it out where we're sort of parsing things out a little bit more. This is our experiment, so hopefully,
AKA Doctrinal Delights.
Doctrinal Delights, the deep D is what I used to call it. That was like the what we called it on the mission, but I like Doctrinal Delights, double D, DD. Last week we talked about how does God work.
We talked a little bit about determinism. I had one point I wanted to there was something, because we got a little heated as we were talking about it, and we were talking over each other a little bit, and I didn't get one point out that I wanted to get out, and now I want to get it out. We weren't talking over each other.
Not really, no. But there was, so the point was that your point that you were trying to make at that moment was God does not govern, God is not governed by the prayer. God governs and is not governed by the prayers of men.
God? How does he say it in the movie? God is not governed by the prayers of men.
It's to say that God answers prayers is to say that God does not govern, but is governed by the prayers of men.
And I'm like, amen, my brother.
Amen, brother. Let's go to the revival. So that was your sort of point. And my rebuttal to that was the scriptures are full of examples of times where he's telling us to pray for the things that we need.
Well, of course. Of course you should do that.
So that was my thought. I don't know. Wanted to get that out there. And now I've shown you exhaustively. My point is right. So today, I want to talk what I want to talk about, and then we can, if you want to get into it. I think it's sort of the same topic. But what I want to talk about is agency and the nature of agency. And I guess the real question,
free will,
the ability to choose, and the question being how much of this stuff do we really have? How much agency do we have?
Like 2 cups, a gallon?
2 cups, a gallon, and we get that we have free agency, and it feels like we have free agency. But as you know from if you've listened to any of this, we're about that nitty gritty stuff, Lyndon. We're getting to the granular level.
Yeah, sure. It feels like we have agency.
Yeah,
but is that all just part of the grand illusion? We know we have some. It's in the scriptures.
Yeah. So how do we want to tackle this? What other topics do you want to touch on?
Well, we briefly brought up metaethics.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, boy, I've got some things to say about that.
Okay.
But that would start to sound more like some university lecture.
Okay.
That I'm spitting up. But I'm sure it'll come up at some point.
All right. So let's run off first of all with the idea about agency. This is something that I started to think about after the mission a little bit more, as I would attend institute classes, and I guess on the mission too, because I'll tell you a story from the mission. This is from last 6 months of my mission, or kind of leading up to that time. So I was an experienced missionary. So was my companion, and we knew what we were doing. We were quite productive that transfer. We'd baptized quite a few people, but and we've sort of touched on this before a little bit, what I'm about to sort of touch on, but we baptized this one guy, and he was a younger guy, 13, 14, and it was one of those situations where he really had no way to get to church other than the members driving him. So it was one of these things where someone was always going to have to be driving him. Mm-hmm. And he lived pretty far away. And what ended up happening was that he got baptized, he got the Holy Ghost, and then he never came back. And what we did is we phoned him, and he was and this will happen sometimes in at least in my mission in Georgia, where religion is pretty widespread and everybody has a religion and everything. And people will come in and out of churches and it's not a big thing. And he's like, you know what? I'm just going to go back to my church if that's cool. He didn't say if that's cool. He just said it. And to him, everything was fine. But to me and my companion, we were like, we've damned this kid. We've damned him because we've shown him the light. He knows the full truth, and he agreed to it. He committed to it, and he chose, using his free will, to go to a different church. Question is now, first of all, how much did he really know? And how accountable are we? How accountable is he? And how much free will? And so I guess like fast forward to like later on now. And I'd been thinking about like the idea of agency is that it's important for us to learn lessons in this life through our own decision making. Mm-hmm. There is a number of factors that make me think we have less agency, possibly, than we think that we do.
Right.
Otherwise, would not this kid be damned?
Well,
right?
You got to think accountability, I think, is kind of on a spectrum.
Yeah.
To where it's like, could a kid that is 7.9 years old get baptized?
No.
Yeah,
well,
are they accountable? Evidently not.
Yeah.
It's like there's a hard line set at 8.
Yeah.
But you baptize a 13-year-old, they're not far away from that 8 years where it's like they're babies in accountability.
Yeah.
So, so maybe what you did was you got his foot in the door in the sense that his records are in the church.
Right.
So when he's 30 years old, someone's going to be like, oh, we got to go visit this guy. He's like, oh, yeah, I remember that good time when I was an adolescent. He's like, now I see the truth for what it really is.
I want to come back. Yeah, honest.
The Spirit has brought back the remembrance of the truth.
Yeah.
So he's not damned.
Right. And I don't.
Or he is.
I don't think he is. But because that is often. Now we get into like what is like the veil, right? And the purpose of the veil. The veil being this idea that we don't remember our pre-earth life or anything to do with knowing God or Jesus or anything, or if we knew each other from before this life. We have no recollection of it. What's the purpose of that? The purpose is for one, I guess, to be a test for us. But another thing, it's sort of like a protection sort of a thing. It's protecting the user or us or whatever, you know, like from some accountability. Because if we know, and that is often right cited as in, you know, when you hear about like, why doesn't God just come down and tell me what I want to know? It's that he's like, if you knew that God existed, how you're so accountable. Your knowledge is perfect. You know everything is true. Therefore, you're willingly going against God's will. So,
yeah, like I can imagine some like Mormon sci-fi fantasy novel that this is a copyright treatment now where it's an alternative universe.
Yeah.
There is no veil. And what it is they start to, by the time you become 8 years old, you start celebrating your veil visions.
Ooh.
Where children start to remember their pre-earth life.
Oh, that's good.
And so in this universe, everyone slowly over time begins to remember their entire pre-earth life. So now everyone's accountable.
Yeah.
So imagine that.
That's interesting.
What do you think the success rate of like compliance to God's commandments would be?
Well, here's the
Do you think
other
it'd make
part.
it easier, or do you think then the people that go astray are like extra damned in this fictional?
Well, they're extra. By definition, I would say that they're extra damned because I'm trying to think right now. Are we talking about the same things? Right. So it's like
I'm talking about writing a book. My character will probably be named. We'll do a female, Mikkel.
Mikkel, good name.
And she doesn't have. This is her. She doesn't have her veil visions when she turns 8. And now she has to learn to obey through faith.
And now she has to enter games where kids fight each other for food
based on their knowledge from the pre-earth life. Now, this sounds like great fiction.
This is a great fictional story.
So I hope that answered your question.
Not really, but like like, here's my theory, I guess, is that, yeah, that we don't have as much. And this was back when I was thinking about the whole, like, does God know everything exactly what's going to happen? Or is he the statistician? Like, he just knows all the possibilities. And I was like, the only, like, a way for, because if he knew everything, and this was back before I sort of went to this thinking that you can have both, but my thought was like that, like, any time, like, how much agency do we really have in our behaviors, in our actions, if we have no control over, like, where we were born, who our parents are, honestly, like, the hormonal profile that we're born with, just like our brain and like that, all that stuff, and any sort of illnesses that we have, like, what? Sure, there's people with, like, mental illnesses, but what about the people with, like, sub-mental illness? Like, whatever is, like, right below an actual,
I don't know, like mood disorders.
Yeah, right. It's like, that's a thing, and so it's like we're born with that, and the other part of it too is like, okay, so is God, and we're told that, like, God is in the details of all of our lives, and so the fact that I'm born in Calgary in 1989 to my parents determines so much of how I think and how I view the world and what it's like we're slaves to what we were, like, raised with.
Slaves to circumstance.
We really are. And so with all of these things in mind, it's just like, how accountable can we really be for the decisions that we make, given all of these things? And does it have to be said that, like, maybe there is is there a randomization element in the assignment of people going to Earth?
Oh, Dr. Disrespect hates that RNG.
That random assignment?
Yeah, random number generator.
Yeah, it's
not good for competition.
No. So anyway, these are some of my thoughts.
Well, I think one way someone might counter that is, well, there's only a few key decisions that need to be made.
Okay.
So it's like, yeah, sure, you were born in Honduras.
Yeah.
In a hut.
Yeah.
But did you choose to follow Christ? That's all that matters.
Okay. I'm willing to accept that.
There's also a lot of people who live their lives like every tiny decision you make matters in eternity. Echoes in eternity.
What we do in this life echoes in eternity. If you find yourself riding in a field with no one around, do not fear, for you are in Elysium, and you are already dead. Anyway,
he was wrong.
Barking at yeah.
Oh, there's like a dog fight going
I think I bothered that dog with what I was saying.
It was a rousing speech.
It was. That's interesting, and I'm willing to buy that argument. That, like, maybe it is just like it's not about the choice to do really. It's just it's a binary thing. Will I choose to do good or will I choose to do evil? The other part of this that I wonder is all that we really need for testing purposes, is that the illusion or the perception of agency? Because that's all we need, right? Is for us to think truly that we have agency. Mm-hmm. And to really have it feel like we have agency. That's all you need for a test, right?
Yeah.
It's like in Die Hard, where he gives Hans Gruber the gun. He didn't need to actually have a bullet in it for him to know if he was going to use it or not. And he's like, and he's like, you think I'm stupid? I would give you a loaded gun. So great moment, great movie.
Interesting. So Bruce Willis is God.
Yeah.
And this life is
we're Hans Gruber.
He's handing us an unloaded gun.
Yeah.
To be like, would you?
Right. Because honestly, that's all. John McClane found out all that he needed to know about Hans Gruber from that thing. The stakes were not real. Ooh, now I'm getting now I'm getting to a place. But yeah, that's an interesting question. I don't know.
You bring up an interesting thing about the stakes of this life.
Yeah.
There is a lot of things in theology, theodicies. A theodicy is like an explanation for why there's evil in the world.
Yeah.
And there's like the Irenaean theodicy is kind of one that I'm familiar with because it sounds a lot like the plan of salvation in Mormonism.
Yeah.
In a sense, because part of it is one explanation for why there's evil in the world is there has to be some form of universal salvation. And if you think about it, you listen to the plan of salvation, that fits.
Yeah.
Everyone will be resurrected. Everyone will receive some form of glory. There is a universal salvation.
Yeah. No, that's true. Yeah, right. Except for like the sons of perdition.
Which, I mean...
stop asking about who those people are, right?
I remember my young men's teacher, he was like, Hitler? I don't know. Maybe.
And then this comes back to accountability, like, because the idea with sons of perdition is like, how much did they know?
Yeah.
So I don't know.
So basically you can say there is a universal salvation.
Yeah. Degrees of salvation.
That's
our belief.
Like everyone, everyone's getting resurrected. Everyone's getting a degree of glory.
Yeah, they are. They are. Okay, so this sort of branches into our next.
So it's almost like the stakes maybe are pretty low.
It's like there was a floor put on how much you can lose, and then there's a sort of there's no ceiling.
Like we've already won just by coming to Earth.
Yeah,
because we basically won the war in heaven, free Earth life.
Yeah.
And now it's like you're not going to lose, but some people are going to win a little more.
Yeah, you're gonna give a floor to just how far down most people can go. And then you're going to show, people who really want to excel can. This goes into the idea of like what the question that I posed.
People who really want to excel or people who really can excel?
What's the is there a difference, do you think?
Yeah.
In God's eyes, I mean. Like I know on earth we have a lot of people who are like, I really want to do X, Y, Z, but yeah, there's people who can execute and those who cannot. I feel like we're often told though that, I feel maybe this is a false conception, but that God is with God, it's more about your intention, more about like your heart, what you want. So it's like if you want to go to the celestial kingdom, you'll get there. And is that because you've done the things that will?
Now we're getting into some meta ethics here.
Yeah.
But there was one thing I remember in my mission journal. I had an investigator named Desiree. Yeah. And her name was just spelt Desire. And I remember it like hit me so hard just like staring at her name. I was like, Desire. Desire. I was like, desire is like everything.
Yeah.
Right? Because it's like you said, lots of people have good intentions.
Yeah.
But it's like the desires of your heart. I was like, what are my desires? Is what I desire everything? Is that all that matters?
Yeah.
Because you can say like, oh, I want to do this, I want to do that, and then you don't do it. Were your desires real?
Ooh.
So I just had like the word desire like carved into my mission journal.
Gomer Pyle style, just like carved in. Desire. That sort of raises another question for me. Is because we fall short. Obviously, we fall short, and it's almost like it's part of the plan. It's in the design of us coming to this planet that we're going to fail. We're going to screw up.
We literally are falling to heaven.
We're falling to heaven, and so it's like for the person who has the good intention, right, and it is like it totally intends and wants, to accomplish, to get to the celestial kingdom or to do any number of things, but he doesn't do it. Is that because of his fallen state? You know what I mean? Like, I've kind of struggled with this idea for a long time about how much is enough? How much is enough to give to something? Because it's like you can always give a little more. You can always, whenever I quit like working out or something, often I'll have probably one more in the tank. Do you know what I mean? Or like if I'm studying for a test, you could keep studying, but I get to a point I'm like, I don't want to. It's like my will breaks often before my body does. And so it's like, is God going to look at that and be like, you're not enough? Or, you know what I mean? Like,
well, I think the thing to remember is no one is enough.
Yeah.
Which it all becomes paradoxical. It gets real tricky, right? Because it's like no one is enough, and we all get by on the grace of the atonement.
Yeah. This is the paradox.
And so it's like, but also,
but we got to do something, right?
We're here, aren't we?
We're here to do our works.
Yeah. So it's like the answer to those questions, I almost feel it's like, I don't want to say trivial, because you're like, how much more do I give? I've heard the hurt principle.
Yeah.
Where it's like, how much do you give? You give until it hurts. So it's like fast offering. How much do you give for your fast offering? And people are like, oh, the amount you would have spent on the food.
Yeah.
It's like, no, keep going.
Yeah.
Give an amount that it hurts that you had to give that amount.
But how much does it have to hurt before?
Just enough. Just enough that you're finally just like, oh, this hurts that I'm giving away this much money for fast offering.
That's interesting.
But some people are going to hear and be like, that sounds crazy and unreasonable. And for some people it is. It's like,
yeah.
And it's like, does that affect your salvation? Probs not.
Yeah.
Or maybe it affects it
more
a
than
lot,
we think. Yeah.
More than you think. Maybe it has everything to do with it.
Maybe it does. Maybe it's about the attitude of the person who's like, who will often go the extra mile.
Well, because it just falls into pereto distributions.
How so?
Well, the 80-20 rule, right?
Okay.
So that's like an example of like a Pareto distribution.
Yeah.
Where it's like, in this case, it's like the last 20% of the results take 80% of the effort. The first 80% takes like 20% of the effort.
Right. Okay.
And it's just, the big thing is like Pareto distributions are natural. You see it in nature.
Yeah.
80% of the people have 20% or 20% of the people have 80% of the wealth.
Yeah.
And it's like, you look into the animal kingdom, 20% of the predators are eating 80% of the prey.
Yeah.
It's like there are always just these top performers that are doing most of like everything in nature.
Yeah.
Which is it's coming up in today's society where people are kind of getting sick of that.
But it's like, how do you, I don't know. I'm getting into
so it's like that's like a problem in society that people are talking about.
Yeah.
And I'm like, in the economy of heaven, one of my favorite phrases, is that how like spiritual salvation works?
I don't know.
Is it like, 20% of the people are getting 80% of the celestial kingdom spots?
Presumably. That's the idea. I'm, from a cursory glance at Section 76, I think paints a picture of a lot of people, talk about Pareto distribution, like a lot of people at the bottom, a pyramid, basically. And we're at the top, you have...
Or even just a normal distribution, a bell curve.
Right. At the tails, you have the fewest people, and in the middle, you have this bulk of just everybody who is average.
Yeah, it's like...
Gosh, that's scary.
Yeah, well, is it, though? Because it's like, so you're like, 80% of people are going to qualify for the celestial kingdom.
Yeah.
What a glorious truth.
Yeah.
Apparently the celestial kingdom's the bomb.
Yeah. Yeah, it's, I don't know, man, but like it's to someone who's like really, wants to the perform, because that really does become the question. Like if the tail ends, if that the celestial kingdom tail of people, and it's not very many people in that group of who make it there, it's got to be the best of the best of the best. And then the question becomes, okay, what do I need to do to get there? Do I need to be even more? Do I need to be doing even more? I think I know the answer to this question, though, and I think there is a prescription of things to do. right? Get baptized, live the gospel, get your ordinances, live a good life.